Okay. Hello, ladies and gents. Andrew Griffiths here with Mr. Michael Hanrahan. G'day, Michael.
G'day, Andrew. G'day, everybody.
How are you going?
Yeah, good, thanks.
We're here. Thank you very much for tuning in, I think, first and foremost, folks, and for expressing some interest in the 2019 Australian Business Book Awards. It's something that obviously I think Michael and I are pretty excited about, and a whole pile of judges and people entering the awards, all that kind of stuff. It's a pretty special kind of event. So this webinar is really being put together to enable the opportunity for us to explain a little bit more about the awards, so you can understand a little bit about where we've come from, how they've developed, that kind of thing. And then we're also going to run through the site and look at some of the categories, and then talk a bit about the submission side of things there. Like any awards, sometimes that can be a little bit complex or confusing. We've tried to make it as simple as possible, but the idea of this is really to enable you to ask them questions. So if you're contemplating, should I submit an entry or not? Well, hopefully we're going to answer all of those particular questions as well. So that's the plan. Probably about 30 minutes, maybe a little bit longer. If you've got any questions that you want to ask, please do drop them in the chat box, as Leo and Alita have done. Joshua, g'day. How you doing there, Joshua? Thank you very much. You can ask questions at any stage of the process, and we'll also do a bit of a Q&A at the end. I think, Michael, how does that sound for you, mate?
Yeah, sounds like a great plan.
All right. Awesome. Let's get going. What we're going to do is we'll just share the screen here now, just to we'll work our way through there. And I guess maybe, Michael, do you want to just kind of talk a little bit about the background, about how the Australian Book Awards actually came to be, and maybe why we're doing it?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've had many authors over the years. I was specialised in serial publishing for the last 5 years, and constantly we get authors saying to us, there's got to be some good awards I can enter. Where can I enter my book? Where can I enter my book? And our answer most of the time has been, there's just really not much out there for these kinds of books. So there's, all sorts of awards for novels and kids' books and all that kind of thing, but there just hasn't been these kind of awards for these sorts of books, especially in Australia. So eventually, we were obviously having a coffee earlier this year, Andrew, and you mentioned maybe we should do the book awards. And so that was how they came about. So we've definitely had this idea for a few years. It's definitely time for these awards, given where the publishing industry is at the moment, given where these kinds of books are at the moment. They're only growing in popularity. We've been publishing more and more books over the last few years. So yeah, that's kind of the background of how it came about.
I think it's also interesting too, because in the last, I think 10 years or so, self-publishing has certainly come a long way, and I look at, I've been writing business books for 20 years through traditional publishers, Allen Unwin, Simon & Schuster, those kind of amazing organisations. But in the last 10 years in particular, and pardon me, in no small part due to people like yourself, Michael, the quality of self-publishing has really gone through the roof as well. And so, we're working with lots and lots of people who are creating fantastic books. And it's a really cool opportunity to be recognised. And that's one of the big reasons why people are actually writing and publishing books, as we know, is to leverage the books, to use them as marketing tools, to position yourselves as authorities in your particular area, all that kind of thing, and rightly so. So it seems to be that there's been this kind of divergence. Obviously, the mainstream publishers have been producing quality books for many years and still are, but with self-publishing, there's a lot more business books also perhaps being produced. And it seems to me that that with all of these extra books around, and the whole essence being that we want to create leverageable items and help to educate people in all kinds of non-fiction areas, that's really great timing to actually do something like this. And how cool to just acknowledge the fact that people are writing and publishing fantastic books on every topic imaginable that we kind of loosely, I guess, put together under the business book category. I look at my bookshelf, I've got 600 odd books from authors that I've worked with, and it's such a diverse range of topics, great quality books. It's I've often thought that wouldn't it be great to have an award system so that people could get a little bit more acknowledgement for that. And so that really is how this evolved. Simple as that, hey, Michael.
Yeah,
From that.
absolutely. Yeah, you're absolutely right about the self-publishing side of things. 10, 15 years ago, high-quality self-publishing, it just wasn't available to the same standard as the major publishers could produce. The printing was too expensive. There just weren't the facilities to do it. These days, with digital printing, desktop publishing's come a long way. The way I describe it to authors is we can produce a book to the same standards as Penguin or Wiley or any of the major publishers. And in a lot of cases, we use the same people and printers as they do. Yeah.
Yeah, coming of age of the self-publishing or custom publishing industry, perhaps is what it kind of leads to. So the awards are really recognising business books, and we cover quite a big area around that. We're going to we'll run through the categories as well. Just a couple of other things to clarify here. First and foremost, what this is going to be an annual award, and it's going to be for. This just happens to be the first year, but it's going to be for like last financial year. So 1st of July, 2018 to 30th of June, 2019. Then next year will be the 2020 Australian Business Book Awards and so forth. So, just to understand where that comes into play. And we'll talk a bit about the criteria in a few minutes, because, is it when your book was printed or when it was published, or, there's a few little kind of questions in that side of things there. We're going to come back to that. We just want to do a little bit more of an overview. One of the other things that I think I'll just mention briefly here, Michael, is the fact that there are lots and lots of prizes. So I think it's closer to $15,000 in prizes now for the Business Book of the Year. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we're pushing 15,000 now.
So, and all kinds of great prizes. But we're also, because there's a submission fee to cover the costs of this site, but if there's any revenue left over, and we're hoping there will be, that's going to go to the Indigenous Literacy Foundation as well. So this is a totally not-for-profit kind of a venture. We're all kind of giving our time freely. So are the judges. People are donating prizes and things like that. So it is 100% designed as a not-for-profit kind of an exercise in that space, just so everyone's aware of that. And the publishing industry in Australia is really supportive of the Indigenous Literacy Foundation as well. So if you haven't heard much about them, when you're on the website for us, just check them out. It's an amazing organisation, and there's all kinds of ways you can do stuff. In the past, I've given away 50 boxes of books to Indigenous communities when I was living in Cairns. There's just great initiatives that you can do, and that was through a contact of mine at the Indigenous Literacy Foundation back then. So that's a bit of an overview. I'd like to just maybe have a quick chat, Michael, about the judges, and excuse my ugly mug coming up first there. No real specific reason apart to embarrass me more than anything else.
Yep.
But do you want to just talk a little bit about how, because you predominantly kind of source the judges, mate, through your network, maybe have a bit of a chat about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So our aim was to get the best in the business. So we're often friends with a lot of our people who are doing similar stuff to us, so similar companies. So there's a few companies that are like ours. They specialise in self-publishing for small business. We've also got Tony Nash there, CEO of Booktopia, obviously. He was very excited to be involved. Leslie Williams, she runs a company called Major Street Publishing. They specialise in investment and business books. Charlotte, she's our senior editor, used to run the Dummies list in Australia, so the For Dummies books. Anne Wilson, she runs a company similar to ours called Independent Inc. Highly experienced. She still does a lot of work with the major publishers. Bev Ryan, she again runs a similar company to us. She specialises quite a bit in business books as well. Dave Stokes is our audiobook guy. He's fantastic, so he'll be judging the audiobooks for us. And Ronsley as well, he's another audio guy. Peter Reardon is our cover designer. He has been designing for over 20 years, used to run the design studio at Wiley, so he's highly, highly experienced. Debbie Lee, she's our account manager. We talk to her all the time at Ingram Spark. She's been right behind the awards from day one. So Ingram have been a fantastic support. They're both a sponsor, and Debbie's going to be a judge. Katrina McCarter is one of our authors. Her first book's called Marketing to Mums, a very good seller. Her next book's coming out very soon. Ocean Reeve, he runs a business similar to us in Sydney, Ocean Reeve Publishing. So he's highly experienced. He has over 15 years, I think, experience. Oh, there we go, 20 plus years in publishing. Vanessa Battersby, she's a highly experienced freelancer. Has experience, used to work at Penguin and Lonely Planet, has worked for all of the major publishers as a freelancer. Kirsty Ogden, again, another company similar to ours. She's got over 25 years experience. And Kerry, last but definitely not least, she's our fantastic typesetter. So she's a typesetter and designer with many, many years experience. So she'll be one of the design judges.
And so what we've really tried to do is just to make sure that we've got a great mix of people who, retail in the industry, who have, there's a huge depth there. I mean, just about every judge there has got 20 plus years of experience in their particular part of the publishing space. So I think what we're trying to really say there is that these are serious awards, and the judging criteria is serious. These are not people that, that have been in the industry for 3 weeks and they've got an opinion. They've been around, they know what makes a good book, and they've got a depth of wisdom and publishing intelligence about them as well, which is just kind of wonderful to have those people on board. And also showed how significant a time it was to actually have the awards, simply by the amount of, I guess, high quality judges that we got, and really nice mix, and nice to see again, great mix from traditional publishing, newer publishing mediums as well, with the likes of Dave Stokes and Ronsley coming in, because the audio side of things now has become so significant and so powerful, I guess, in that respect. Mm-hmm. If we kind of look a little bit deeper now, maybe just to run through just briefly the awards categories as well, and why we've perhaps chosen these as well. One of the things, just on passing, folks, is that if you win a category, you get to kind of utilise these badges as well, so to try and leverage what it is around it. And just also on passing, everyone, like the awesome Mr. Bushy Martin, thank you for the questions in there and the feedback in the chat box. We'll make sure we get to your questions, everyone, as well, but also appreciate your feedback as we're going through. That's great to see what you're saying there, folks. Joshua as well. It's an impressive lineup of judges, and it's a good spread it is. Bushy, an awesome selection of top-notch judges. Will each judge be reading every book submission and then grading them against the agreed criteria? If not, how will the judging work? Okay, there's probably a good question to actually to answer that now, seeing we've just spoken about the judges. So do you want to kind of maybe talk that through a little bit, Michael?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way the judging is going to work is that judges have been allocated to the categories that they specialise in. So each judge, to answer your question, Bushy, each judge won't be reading each book. They'll be reading each book in their category. And then what's going to happen is, the reason we've got 2 judges in each category. The reason for that is there is a chance that some authors, or we know it's already happened, authors will submit books that some of the judges have worked on, because obviously we wanted to get the best in the industry as judges, which means that some of the authors submitting are going to have worked with those people. So that's why there's 2 judges in each category, so that if that one of the judges has worked on one of those books, it will go to the other judge in that category. And then what happens, you're right again, Bushy, there is a set of 10 criteria that each judge is going to assess the book on, and that happens within each category. And then if there's a book that has the highest score across all categories, that's automatically going to be the book of the year. If there's a tie between 2 different books, there's going to be another round of judging, and then that book will be the book of the year, the book that wins that second round of judging.
I think what we've tried to do, because judging is hard on something like this too, in terms of, I guess, opinions and speculation and things like that. So the numerical kind of judging and evaluation to the criteria that we're trying to do seem like the best way to be able to kind of make it fair for everyone. And just giving you there, in case you haven't seen, folks, just a snapshot of some of the early entries that we've received so far on that side of it. So nice to see the range of books already being submitted. Did that answer your question then, Bushy, just on passing about that, how did judging work? Just let us know if you can. And then we'll go back just while we're waiting to hear. It's a long way from South Australia, Bushy. I know it's a...
Thanks, Bushy.
Internet lines, the intranet's lines. So just maybe back to the categories as a bit of an overview. Did you want to kind of talk these through, Michael, or we can talk them through together?
Yeah, absolutely. We can have a quick run through them for people.
Okay.
So, I mean, as we've talked about, they're fairly self-explanatory. We've got entrepreneurship and small business. So obviously you and I, Andrew, both work on a lot of books in these areas, starting small business, selling a business, business innovation. So it's going to, some people might have to decide whether their book fits into general small business or whether they want to put it into a specific category, such as marketing, PR, and sales. So there is going to be some overlap for some people who need to decide where their categories fit. Obviously, a lot of the authors will fit into small business. Personal development, so general self-help. So again, we work on a lot of self-help books these days. So again, there might be a little bit of overlap. Some authors have written books that are kind of self-help for business or self-help personally. So that's something you'll have to decide. Time management, business skills, self-esteem. So that's another popular topic at the moment. So really anything, it can be a book. Obviously, it doesn't have to be a book about business personal development. It can be a book about personal development, just as a standalone topic. Marketing, PR, and sales. So that's fairly obvious. Marketing theory methods, sales theory and methods. Personal finance and investment. Again, another fairly self-explanatory topic. So that can be any type of investment. So property, shares, superannuation you can put in there if you wanted to. Personal insurance, anything like that that's related to personal finance. Management and HR, again, that can be a fairly broad category. Business administration, business insurance, that kind of thing. So there are, obviously, you can see there's going to be some books that might fit into more than one category. So it'll be up to authors to decide which they think is most appropriate. Leadership, technology and social media, again, fairly self-explanatory. Health and well-being, again, obviously this doesn't have to be specifically related to business in any way. So a general fitness book, I've got yoga, meditation in there. So allergies is a topic in there. We worked on a book a little while ago that was a cookbook for mums whose kids have allergies. So that sort of thing could fit in there. And then we've got the catch-all category of general business. So if you do find that your book isn't fitting in anywhere at all, which is, most authors should fit their books into one of the categories. But if you do find yourself stuck, so maybe you've written a business biography or an autobiography, general business is the catch-all if you don't quite feel that you fit into any of the other categories. Now, and then as we mentioned, book of the year, that's not a category that people enter. That's the book that wins the categories overall. So the highest scoring book in the categories, or if there's a tie, that'll be judged separately. And then the other categories we've got here, so not subject categories, but marketing and production categories. So best marketing and publicity achieved. So if your book's done really well, maybe you've been on TV a few times. This can be publicity about your book specifically, or publicity that you've very obviously achieved on the back of your book. So best marketing publicity, TV, podcasts you've been interviewed on, that kind of thing. Best cover design, that's very obvious. And best audio book as well. So as Andrew said, audiobooks are growing rapidly in popularity.
The moral to this, this is often the part, unless it's really obvious. If you've written like a book about marketing small business, well, you tend to know where it goes in there. Sometimes though, people go, oh my God, it's a bit stressful. I'm not quite sure which category is the most right for me. Any doubt, the one thing that we're saying to everyone is to just drop us a line. On the content, drop the lovely Anna will answer any question about categories or about should you, shouldn't you, don't not enter because you don't know what category to enter in. That's the moral to the story, is that, reach out. It's a first year for us for the awards as well. And we're really, we put a lot of thought into what's the best way to make this work. Doesn't necessarily mean it's always right, and it's something that we're kind of developing as well, and we'll review it after the awards. But they are mainly the main categories you're going to find in bookstores, the main categories or classifications for books that come under there. That's really how that came into play. So they kind of, cover a fairly broad non-fiction kind of area. Michael, do we want to answer a couple of quick questions while we've got here about that? Like Joshua's question is there, I'd like to apply for 2 categories. I'm assuming that means I have to go through the process twice and apply twice. Can you just go through?
Yeah, absolutely. G'day, Joshua. The answer to that is no, you don't. You only have to apply once. So the entry form has space for you to enter 2 categories, and then you get to basically you have to just tick the first box, and then the second box will go live, and you can tick the second box. It'll calculate your payment automatically based on entering 2 categories. So no, you do not have to enter twice. You only have to fill out the form once, and you'll see when you do there's space for 2 categories there.
Yeah, we wouldn't make you go through the whole kind of process twice, Joshua, on that side. And again, we also understand that, it's kind of a little bit hard to go, well, like my cover's really good. Do I submit under that, or is it my audio book's really well? On top of the fact that it's a health and wellbeing book, but I love my audio book, but I love my cover. Like that's the same with any kind of competition. I guess we always have to try and figure out what's the most appropriate or the most accurate or the most relative, I think, on that side of things as well. That's kind of what I would look at from that perspective. I'm also going to say, look, I can't help it. I'm Mr. Leverage. That's what I do with books. To actually enter the awards and to win, we'll probably do up a banner as well, which will be, again, I'm really spoken to Mike about this, but for people who are finalists, we might have a button for the finalists as well. So you're a finalist in the awards. We'll think about that before I kind of commit to it. But if you win a category and you get the logo, I mean, it's such a great thing to be able to use to leverage your book, to include that in your next print editions of your book, winner, Best General Business Book of 2019. You can imagine that's, significant. I won an award for one of my books, a book I wrote called The Me Myth, and it was the Australian Financial Review Best Personal Development Book of 2010, I think it was, which is, I was amazed at that, the leverageability that created for me was quite extraordinary as well, because I pushed it out and leveraged it. So there's a lot to be kind of had with that side of things as well, in terms of really leveraging the awards. Joshua there, so I'm guessing I'll send 4 books, 2 books to each category, ? Michael?
Yep, that's correct. Yep, 2 books per category. So yes, 4 books for 2 categories. Yep. All that info is in the form. You'll see it as you go through, Joshua.
Awesome. Okay, great. Okay, other questions that we've got there. Do we want to talk about, I guess, in the maybe we'll just give you a little bit of an overview before we dive into a few more questions, just about the timeline. So everyone's submission has to be in by the Friday the 30th of August. Mm-hmm. So there's 2 parts to this, right? So one is you've got to do the online submission, and the second part is you've got to get the physical book to us, assuming that, that you're supplying a physical book. Now, it has to be postmarked 30th of August. So if you get it to the post office and they stamp it 30th of August, which will probably mean it'll arrive Monday at Michael and Anna's at Publish Central, well, that's fine. That's how I understand it to be, Michael. But, like everything, we would strongly suggest that you don't leave it to the last day. And typically everyone does, right? So, when we look at that side of it, that's something that we just got to make sure that we kind of get right. So I would try and say, please don't wait till the last minute to do your submissions, just in case something does go wrong there. So anyway, again, Michael, question here there from Gabrielle. So you can definitely only enter 2 categories. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes. The form literally won't let you fill out anymore. So yes. So have a think about it. As Andrew said, don't get too hung up on it. And if you Archie wants to be involved.
From our sponsor.
Yeah. If you do have any queries about the categories, feel free to send us an email. If we think you've entered into a category that really doesn't suit your book, we'll let you know. So yeah, don't get too hung up on the categories. It's just, the main thing is to enter.
Yeah, and bottom line, reach out, email, all the information there, like in the contact us side of things there, like literally, drop, Anna a line, drop, just kind of talk to us is really the key there around that side. The phone number, email, it's there if there's any doubts at all, because we do understand that, sometimes that criteria is a bit of the challenging side of things. Anyway, finals in by the 30th of August. Then what happens is it's quite a process, as you can imagine, for judging. The judges are all busy people. So the judging process takes place over September and October. And then we're doing an online event for the actual awards night. So that's pretty exciting. That's going to be happening. I think it's November is it 20th, Michael? I can't remember now. Just
21st off the top of my head, but don't quote me on that. Let me have a look as well.
Wednesday the 20th, and that's
20th,
online. Right. All that kind of, and we'll give everyone all the details around that, and we'll be doing all of the category winners and announce the book of the year. All that kind of stuff will all be happening there. So that's a bit of that overview and a bit of the plan there from that. I think the how to enter is that the key element there that we'll talk through a little bit. And Michael, I think I'll let you talk this through. You guys have developed all of this, so it's probably easy if you maybe kind of talk this session through, and I'll scroll down as required.
Yep, absolutely. So, so there's a few things. There's a few requirements for entering. Firstly, you absolutely have to have a printed book. So you can't enter only an ebook or only an audio book. What we require is a PDF copy of your book. So you should be able to easily find this. If you don't have that on hand, just contact your designer or your typesetter should be able to give that to you. A JPEG or a PDF of your cover, so that's self-explanatory. It doesn't have to be the spine and the back cover. If you've only got the front cover, that's absolutely fine. The author video, so we've had a few questions about this. As you can see, maximum 90 seconds. This is just to explain a little bit about yourself and your book, why you're entering the awards, that kind of thing. So that may be used on social media to promote the awards and promote you obviously in your book as well.
And sorry, just on passing on that, Bushy's question earlier on there, Michael, was, does it have to be professionally produced video? Absolutely not, Bushy. End of an iPhone, you're familiar, mate. Get the lapel mic, and it's really it just helps the judges to understand a little bit more about who you are, why you wrote the book, your philosophy behind it. Short and sharp. It's nothing overly involved on that side of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, just on your phone is absolutely fine. So if you're entering the audiobook category, obviously we need an MP3 audiobook file of your book. You'll see where to upload this in the entry form. And if you're entering the marketing and publicity category, you can do two things. You can either upload the images with your entry, or you can just email us links. So if you've got, if you're on a podcast or a blog or something like that, you can email those links to us. Or if you do have some old-fashioned publicity in a newspaper or something like that, just take a photo and you can email that to us or upload it as well.
Great. Okay. Most of the other things in terms of the audiobook submissions, marketing, publicity, all of that kind of stuff, the address for posting the book is all there. Other kind of bits and pieces. How many books do people got to send in, Michael?
2 books per category, 2 printed versions. The reason for that is we're going to keep one here in the offices, so we've got a copy on hand and one copy goes to the judge.
Yep, great. And so entry fees, they're $99 per book, with a maximum of 2 books for any author. Additional categories, 44. So all of that kind of all comes out in the online entry form as well. So once you decide to kind of click in, there's a few things you might want to have a look at. The terms and conditions. Like I know that, it's like the Apple terms and conditions. We don't tend to kind of, read through all that. But look, they're not that onerous, really. I mean, it might look like they are, but they're not really. It's probably worth having a little bit of a read through there. And Bushy, you had a question there before a bit about what are the other criteria mentioned in the print book judging. Again, Michael, are you able to kind of answer that one off the cuff?
Yep. Sorry, what was that, Andrew? Sorry, I had the dog in the background
doing stuff. Bushy asked a question earlier on there about the judging, the book judging criteria, and we've got one of the sections in there. What are the other criteria?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, so the other criteria is obviously the obvious things are, print quality. So for paper quality, binding, lamination, all that kind of thing. The other criteria, this is why it's kind of a bit vague, other criteria. It's a little bit of a how long is a piece of string question in that it might be if you've got any other particular features of your book. So Bushy, obviously you've got the gold foiling on your cover. So it's things like that, the gold foiling, whether there's a color section, that kind of thing. So other criteria is basically anything additional to what would be the standard criteria.
Anything that enhances it, that is maybe, you know, a little bit out of the ordinary. I think, again, books have come such a long way in the last few years too. You know, even things like internal layout has changed so dramatically. You know, other features that people might have can do with the structure, look and feel, you know, all types of things. So I think we needed to have a little bit of that kind of vagueness. Well, it's not really vagueness, but allow room for the judgment criteria to take that into consideration.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hopefully that answers that question for you there. Another question here from Joshua: could a media kit be used again for the publicity part of the entry? Absolutely. You know, I think so. Again, as long as your media kit ideally would have evidence of media that you've achieved, you know, some examples of that kind of stuff would be good. Really, bottom line is, if you're not sure, probably submit it as supporting information. Again, Michael, you're kind of managing this part of the process with Anna. Is that fair to say, or would you, you know, what's your take?
Yeah, definitely. If you've gone to the trouble of preparing a media kit already, you can absolutely send that in. But the main focus, if you are entering the marketing publicity category, is to send examples of the media you've received. So that's the main focus of it. But if you did want to send something additional like a media kit or anything like that, that's absolutely fine as well.
Yeah, great. So have a read through those. That's the key to that. The other thing is too, I think, is when you go into the how to enter side of things, it really, the form does walk you through, you know, like it's really pretty simple and pretty straightforward. Come on. And you'll find that even though it's all kind of explained there, you go to offsite, and then this is the how to enter kind of part of town, where again, we've tried to explain it pretty much specifically as we can, and then you literally walk your way through it. Okay, so, you know, which it's there, you know, you've got which category do you want. So first category you're entering, second category that you're entering. You know, if you haven't already walked it through, I think once you start doing that, you'll kind of realize, yeah, it's actually very simple and very straightforward. But again, moral to the story on every page, any questions, just shoot an Anna and Michael are fabulous. They're so responsive. They'll get back to you really, really quickly, far quicker than I will. You know, so when you look at that, just you know, help, you know, get us to help you walk through it more than anything else, because we want you to have the best chance of actually winning your category as well. You know, so we will do that. But I think, as you rightly pointed out, Michael, if someone submitted a book and we think it's the wrong category, we would probably go, you know, it's might not be the right one. So we would kind of engage with you on that. We're going to talk through some of the other typical kind of FAQs that we're being asked. If you've got any more questions, anyone who's on the line now, specific questions, do please feel free to ask those by all means. I think probably some of the ones that we'd like to talk about a bit in there, just the date, just to really kind of clarify about what it looks like for the dates, because there are kind of two key dates. One is often the date that the book is printed, and the other one is often the date that the book is published. And they are often two dates. So if your book was printed in May 2018, you know, but it wasn't officially published till July 2018, then it's okay. But it was published like on the 27th of June in the earlier financial year, it can't come in. It has to be published, you know, from 1st of July to 30th of June. So 1st of July 2018 to the 30th of June 2019. Yep?
Yep, that's correct. Yes.
Did that make sense, or did I just confuse everyone?
No, I think that makes sense. So the distinction we've used, and this is the way it's done in the publishing industry, so that's why we've used this, is that it's not the printed date, it's the published date. So they're definitely not the same thing. So the published date, the best way to think of it is the date your book became available to the public. So if you've had your book printed and it's sitting in your office for 2 weeks and you haven't unpacked it yet, that book isn't considered published yet. It's considered published once the book's made available to the public. So that's the important date. So if your books were printed just before the cutoff date, but you weren't doing anything with them until after, so before make sure I get the dates right as well. If your books were printed before the 1st of July 2018, but you didn't start doing anything with them until after the 1st of July 2018, you are eligible. So it's very important distinction that we've been asked about a few times so far.
Mm. Another, again, any doubt? Drop us an email. You know, some people don't know that, particularly in the self-publishing space. Like you might have had them printed and they've arrived, and you've looked at the day they've arrived or the day they were printed as your publishing date, and that might be the case as well. Okay, so you know you've got to kind of define that a little bit in your own space. Some of the unusual kind of books that we've, I guess, been asked a bit about. A few people said, "Oh, look, I've written a chapter in a book that's got multiple authors." So, I mean, I've done this for one of Dale Beaumont's books years ago, "Secrets of Marketing Experts Exposed." So, I had a section in there which is about marketing, along with 20 other people. Now, I can't, you know, sure, I've written a section in that, but I'm not the author of the book. You know, so I've contributed to the book. You can't really add that in as your book. Okay, Dale could add that in as his book because his name's on the cover and theoretically he's pulled it all together, but it's not something that you could actually kind of do yourself. So again, that's correct, Michael?
Yeah, absolutely correct. Yeah, it's if you're a co-author and you've made a substantial contribution to the book, that's okay. Like Andrew said, basically the criteria will be if your name's prominent on the cover. So if you're that, yeah, that's the best way to look at it. I think if you're one of 20 contributors, then no, you won't be eligible. If you're one of 2 authors, that's fine. You can submit the book.
Great. Another kind of question that we were asked a couple of times, which is a bit surprising actually, but it's good to answer it here. Does entering the awards affect my copyright in any shape or form? So I think we had 1 or 2 people saying, "Oh, does that mean if I'm entering the awards, I'm handing my copyright over to you," or something along those lines? And look, absolutely not. You know, like this is nothing. That's nothing to do with us. No. This is really just about acknowledging your work. You know, so everything else goes on as normal for you. It's your book. You just keep doing whatever it is you're doing to leverage it, to promote it, to, you know, do all of those things. This is just, hopefully we're going to be able to give you some acknowledgement for the book that you've written and published. So don't kind of worry about that. 2 other great questions in here, Michael. One is, what if I've launched an updated edition of my book during the financial year of 2019? Can I enter? What's your response to that, mate?
Yeah, so the answer depends on the degree of the update, basically. So if you've released a revised edition or a 2nd edition or 3rd edition or whatever it is, absolutely, from a publishing point of view, that's considered a new book and you can certainly enter it. If you've only done a reprint, and even if you've made just a few corrections, so maybe there was a couple of typos in there or that sort of thing, and you fixed those, that doesn't qualify you. So a reprint doesn't qualify you. As we talked about before, there's a difference between printing and publishing. If you only printed your book then and didn't make significant changes, it's not eligible.
Yeah, okay. And the way that I just kind of clarify that one would be, you know, I think, I'm sorry, Mike, I'm not sure if you mentioned that just there, but if it's the new edition, it's got a new ISBN?
Yep. If it's got a new ISBN, yes.
And it's got a new cover, generally?
Yep, generally, yeah. Or if you've updated the existing cover. Yeah. Added 2nd edition to it or something like that, yeah.
Fantastic. Can I enter an ebook or an audio book only? You know, is another question that's been asked, and the response to that is no. You know, you've got to submit printed copies of your book. So, I mean, you know, down the line, who knows? People might just do audio books and things like that. We'd review that, but at this stage of the game, it's very much a printed hard copy of your book, and ideally, you know, you have done an audio book as well, and that'll may hopefully go in the audio book or whatever category you want to kind of have it in. But really, really interesting. Were there any other kind of FAQs that you've been asked, Michael, so far that you'd like to bring up?
No, I think we've covered everything. Yeah, we've talked about how, a few questions we've had about how late can people post their books. We've answered that. So I think the biggest discussion we've had with people submitting so far is that difference that we've talked about between when your book was actually printed and when it's actually considered published. So I think we've covered that well, so that's fine.
Great. The only question now, we've got one from Leo and Alita saying, can the winner tag you in the video of them dancing? And this is all stemmed from, folks, the acronym for the Australian Business Book Awards, of course, is ABBA. And so these have become the ABBA Awards, much to Michael's joy as a
Oh, I'm such an ABBA fan.
And it is stuck, and it's not going anywhere now on that side of it. Thank you for that, lovely Lolita and Leo. Bushy, congrats again on another awesome initiative. Thank you for supporting it, Bushy. I mean, look, this thing wasn't going to get off the ground unless we have people like you who we've worked with, who have written great books, who want to get behind it. And thanks for all of the tirade of ABBA comments as well.
Thanks, Bushy. Appreciate it.
Nice work. Has anyone on the line, has anyone got any other questions that they would like to ask? Is there anything that we haven't kind of covered? Really, now is the time to probably do that. I would, of course, be saying that, check out go through the site as much as you can. Come back to that. If anything you're uncertain about, you just do the contact Anna, reach out, go through it. It's really worth entering something like this. I can't kind of emphasize that enough. It's a great kind of a idea initiative. It's, for those of you who enter, it's just a cool thing to have your book reviewed by a panel of professional judges, that in its own right, and to be able to kind of be seen amongst that. We'll push out, all the winners, and we're pushing out the people that are entering as well. And that's, so much about what this is all about too, is to get that recognition and acknowledgement for what is generally a whole lot of work and effort and financial investment and time and all the rest of it. So it's a cool thing to be a part of. Thank you, Joshua, for tuning in. Michael, I don't know if we've got any more questions. I think we've kind of answered everyone's questions. No one else is kind of coming there. Thank you for those who have tuned in. Natasha, got Darren Stevens, Elise, Gabrielle's on there. Pete Williams, I wonder if that's my friend Pete from BE. Rita Zapula, quite a few different people. Thanks very much for your time today, folks. And if you haven't had any questions now, that's fine. Hopefully we've answered everything. And we'd love to see your books being submitted. We'll keep an eye out. So, and also one other thing I'm going to say too, folks, is please do us a favor. Authors tend to know other authors. Please promote the awards. Encourage other authors who you may know to be submitting for the awards as well. The more the merrier, in terms of the more people that we have, the more the awards will grow, and they'll become really firmly entrenched in the publishing calendar every year. That's what we're really hoping to do here as well. And as the awards grow, we can do more stuff with them. There's lots of things we can do. Thank you, Josh.
Thanks, Josh. Yeah,
that's wonderful, mate. Really, really appreciate the fact that you're going to share that over the next few days. All right, well, that's it then, folks. I think we'll call that a webinar. Really appreciate your time this morning. We know everyone's busy. We'll let you get back on with your life. Thank you, Mr. Hanrahan, for tuning in. Thank you, Archie, for barking and letting us know.
Sorry about that, everybody.
I love it. Archie's the boss. And get those submissions in 30th of August. The clock is ticking.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.
All right. Okay. Thanks very much, Michael. Thanks, folks. We'll talk again very soon, guys. Cheers.
Thanks, Andrew. See ya.